Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, what was the biggest news story of 2007? Which of these celebrities got the media talking? And which world politician dominated the headlines with his real-life soap opera? Plus, 2007's most popular viral video. Welcome to a special edition of The Listening Post. This week, we're doing something a little different, an inventory of the top news stories of the past year, the events, the people, and the PR that have been covered most by the world's media. It's a surprising list with some results you just couldn't guess at. We've done this with the help of a Canadian company called Influence Communication. They did not include online news, the tabloid press, or gossip magazines. But the survey did take into account the placement of the news item, the circulation and viewing figures, and how many times the news item was repeated in the media. See if the media's version of what mattered in 2007 is the same as yours, as we count down the top 15 news stories of the year. At 15 and 14, two stories that just made the list of the top stories of 2007 were a celebrity adoption and a global toy story. The 15th biggest global news story this year came out of Africa. It had a humanitarian angle with more than a touch of Hollywood. Madonna grabbed the headlines after she adopted a little boy from an orphanage in Malawi. The adoption actually took place in 2006, but the world's media waited until 2007 to get the knives out. The singer was accused of using her wealth and celebrity to fast-track the adoption.
I think Madonna is a huge manipulator of the press and has done so brilliantly over the years. But I think in this case, when she adopted her son, it was very different for her because whether she liked it or not, it was going to be reported. She couldn't really stage manage this one. It was really out of her control, and I think it did slightly backfire for her.
At number 14, another unlikely media story. Toy manufacturer Mattel recalled tens of millions of its made-in-China products over lead poisoning fears. Barbie's accessories, doggy daycare, and Polly Pocket were all hit by the scare. Our next three stories, numbers 13, 12, and 11 in our countdown: a celebrity in trouble, a missing child, and the launch of a new gadget. All of them provide a testimony to the power of PR and how that affects the news game. Here's the Listening Post's Meenakshi Ravi.
Britney, Paris, Lindsay. Their misdemeanors filled the tabloids and gossip magazines in 2007. But our survey only counts hard news sources. So which scandal-hit celebrity made it to number 13 on the list?
Paris Hilton's incarceration this year caused more media mayhem than Lindsay Lohan's arrest and her time in jail and her rehab struggle, and of course Britney's ongoing horrors with her children, with the custody, divorce, all of that.
The airhead heiress's spell behind bars turned into one of the year's biggest media circuses. But not everyone agreed the story was worth covering.
This is the Paris Hilton story, okay?
Wait a second.
Hold on a second. I'm going to make a point.
Lord.
We're not covering this, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm done with the Paris Hilton story.
But that didn't stop Paris turning the story to her advantage to become the most talked about person of 2007, world leaders aside.
Let's face it, it was all good publicity for her at the end, no matter what you say. She would have made a lot of money out of the back of that. TV interviews, books, and it continues. The Paris Hilton Roadshow goes on.
When little English girl Madeleine McCann disappeared from a holiday resort in Portugal, the world's media descended on the scene.
Televisions from Spain, France, England, Germany, Belgium, Italy. It's not normal. This is a European case. This is globalization of information.
Child abductions are rare, but not unheard of.
This story had a certain resonance for the global middle class. Here is a good-looking family and a beautiful child on a holiday. The worst fear for any parent is your child is taken from you.
When the police proved unwilling to speak to the media, the McCanns decided to push the story themselves.
They tend to appear at approximately the same time every day. They tend to do more or less the same thing, and the press appreciate this as a way of guaranteed contact with them, a way of taking new, fresh photographs, even if they're very similar to the photographs taken the day before, and therefore give those pictures a better chance of appearing in the newspapers and of appearing on television.
Madeleine's parents hired media advisors to run their campaign.
There was a great Svengali in the middle of it, a guy called Clarence Mitchell, who ran this story and helped them interface this story with the news.
Team McCann, as they call themselves, kept the story high in the news agenda with the help of celebrity appeals.
Please help us. Thank you.
At number 11 is another example of the power of PR at work in the news, the launch of the iPhone.
Probably the PR firms responsible of the launch of the iPhone could win a prize for this news, because there's no issue. No bad guy, no good guy, just a launch of a product around the world, a huge commercial success.
Our next troika of stories, numbers 10 through 8, all involve political leaders, including one who came to power and one who met his fate. The Listening Post's Salah Qadar on that.
Our 10th biggest news story of 2007 is the execution of former Iraqi President Saddam Hussein.
The defining aspect of the story of Saddam Hussein's execution was the mobile phone footage that was smuggled out. I mean, obviously it was a huge story anyway. It was magnified, 100-fold by the existence of pictures. I mean, and such dramatic pictures of such a dramatic man meeting such a dramatic end.
At number 9 is the G8. The summit was always going to be high on the news agenda, but this year Russian President Vladimir Putin sent it shooting up the list with a surprise pre-summit announcement. The message was delivered through journalists whom the Kremlin summoned to Moscow, one from each G8 country.
I got a call on my cell phone from somebody from the Kremlin, and all he said was, at 3:45, come to Red Square. That was it. It sounded very John le Carré, very cloak and dagger. Well, we'll find you in Red Square,
At a private dinner, Putin told the journalists that if the US allies went ahead with plans to establish a missile defense system in Central Europe, Russia would re-aim its missiles at Europe.
Our paper put it on the website on Saturday before, and it was probably the biggest hit we've had all year. The Guardian made it a gigantic type headline on Monday morning. It was what we call Jesus type, the big letters said the new Cold War. Most of the world's media dropped everything for this on the Monday.
Putin effectively hijacked the G8 agenda, making the summit the 9th most talked about story in the world, and himself the 6th most talked about politician, ahead of Angela Merkel, Ahmadinejad and Shinzo Abe. But maybe his own notoriety has more to do with his holiday snaps than the missile disputes. Another political story at number 8, France's presidential elections. In what was probably the best dressed contest of the year, an impossibly chic Ségolène Royal went head-to-head with the stylish Nicolas Sarkozy. Sarkozy pipped her to the post, taking 53% of the votes. But the new French president's personal life grabbed as many headlines as his politics. First there was the feud with his former mentor Jacques Chirac, then came the criticism of his extravagant lifestyle.
The pictures that we got of Cecilia and Nicolas Sarkozy on this boat shocked, France. Nicolas Sarkozy campaigned for months, even years, on putting the French, back to work hard, earn money, etc. So there was kind of quite a gap in between, what he campaigned for and the way of life he was leading.
With Sarkozy used to calling the shots with the media in France,
répondre bien sûr à toutes vos questions, tout naturellement. Et puis après, peut-être que vous pourrez prendre le cours de l'actualité avec d'autres sujets et me laisser avec ma famille tranquillement.
His heavy-handed tactics backfired abroad when he tried to physically restrain photographers.
How surprised are you to be confronted by an angry, near-naked world leader?
Well, I must say that the near nakedness didn't put me off as much as him being a world leader.
Sarkozy's election win and his real-life soap opera earned him reams of newsprint and hours of TV coverage, making him the 2nd most talked about politician in the world.
Coming up after the break, the top 7 news stories covered by the global media in 2007.